You're watching Manhwely Recap. Stories full of love, betrayal, and unexpected twists. Let's start. The magical dragon tries to summon a goddess with miraculous beauty and healing powers. However, instead of the goddess, Kim Ojin appears. Disoriented and confused, he assumes he must be dead and starts recalling his past life. The grueling years in vet school, frequent scoldings, finally earning his veterinary license, and then enduring 3 years of underpaid work while caring for abandoned pets. After endless struggles, our protagonist manages to open a small clinic, but it barely survives. Customers are non-existent, and even the lights on his signboard have gone out. One night, as Ajin lies in bed reflecting on his miserable situation and overwhelming debt, he hears a strange sound. Before he can react, our boy suddenly finds himself in a cave surrounded by treasures and a radiant summoning circle. Convinced he's ended up in hell, he demands to know why he's been brought there. The dragon explains it summoned him to treat its pet. Expecting a terrifying monster, our hero is stunned when the dragon opens its claws to reveal a small, weakly sleeping fruit bat named Catloss. Observing the frail, dehydrated bat, Ajin immediately snaps into professional mode, asking about its name, symptoms, and how long the dragon has cared for it. Proudly, the dragon says he has owned Catloss for a week. Ever since keeping pets became popular among dragons, remembering his disdain for those who adopt pets on a whim, our protagonist asks if Catloss has been eating properly. The dragon confidently replies that he feeds it fresh animal blood, assuming the bat has a refined palate. Dumbfounded, Ojin lowers his head in disbelief. Recognizing this as his least favorite kind of owner, those who know nothing about their pets. Frustrated, he informs the dragon that fruit bats don't drink blood. Only vampire bats do. Catloss, he explains, has been starving for a week. Embarrassed, the dragon admits it's his first time keeping a bat. Ajin scolds him for not researching beforehand and points out that the cave's freezing temperature could be fatal if the bat wakes from hibernation. The dragon protests that he is an ice dragon, but our boy sternly insists that this environment is still unsuitable for a bat. Feeling remorseful, the dragon lowers his head and apologizes to Catloss, promising to get fruit right away and return the bat to its original home. Grateful for Ajin's help, the dragon offers to grant him a wish as a token of thanks. He jokingly asks to be reincarnated as a rich Arab prince or a villainous heir. Perplexed by the odd request, the dragon removes his necklace and gives it to Ojin, explaining that it is a magical pendant capable of granting any wish, provided it is not fueled by ill intent. As the pendant begins to glow, our protagonist concludes he must be in the afterlife. Just before vanishing, he quickly wishes to return to the early days of Bitcoin. The dragon watches as Ajin disappears, then hurries to prepare fruit for Catloss, still puzzled by the strange goddess he had summoned. Moments later, our hero finds himself standing in a bustling street filled with people, noise, and the aroma of food. Still bewildered, he wonders if this is reincarnation or possession. A fruit seller, noticing his odd attire, asks if he is a traveler and explains that he is in the Bmor region, famous for its inns and markets. Before he can respond, chaos erupts as a giant rabbit charges down the street, devouring fallen carrots. People scream and scatter, but Ajin remains frozen, marveling at the sight of a monster roaming freely among people. The fruit seller warns him that it's Lord Belmore's pet and urges him to run. Then Ojin spots a small girl crying in front of the rabbit. Without hesitation, our boy rushes forward, grabs her, and pulls her away just before the creature can reach her. As the rabbit lunges again, his pendant glows, and a blue leash materializes around it. The crowd gasps, murmuring that he must be a wizard. The fruit seller, clutching her sister, remarks that our protagonist doesn't look like an ordinary traveler. Lord Belmore soon arrives, furious to see his pet restrained. Ojin explains that the rabbit nearly attacked a child, but Belmore refuses to believe it. Losing patience, our hero snaps that the worst pet owners are those who ignore their pet's faults, warning that the rabbit's bite could easily crush a skull. The fruit seller and her sister exchange approving glances at his candor. Examining the rabbit more closely, Ojin notices its ears and realizes it's a domestic rabbit suffering from stress and overfeeding. When he questions its behavior, Belmore admits that the rabbit, Elizabeth, often pulls out her own fur. Ojin explains that such stress could be fatal and advises against taking her into crowded places. When Belmore asks about exercise, our boy suggests letting her move freely at home and discourages spoiling her. Shocked and ashamed, Belmore tears up, admitting that people ridicule him for raising a rabbit, but Ojin clearly understands animals better than anyone else. Belmore summons his butler, gives Ojin a pouch of coins, and asks him to check on Elizabeth from time to time. After apologizing to his pet, he leaves with her while our protagonist mutters under his breath that he won't be visiting this place again. Suddenly, people gather around, cheering and praising Ojin's bravery. The fruit seller thanks him for saving her stall and offers him a discount. But when our hero explains he has no money, she points to the pouch. Opening it, he discovers gold coins and bites one to confirm it's real. Realizing it is, our boy smiles faintly, thinking that perhaps he can finally open another clinic here and pay off his debts from the human world. Ojin thanks all the interviewers who have come for the job selection and half-amusedly remarks that he hopes one of them will be chosen. He then announces it's time to begin the interview, calling it a game of life and death. Briefly, our protagonist's thoughts drift to Lord Belmore, who had generously offered land and money when Ojin decided to settle down in this new place. Thanks to that support, the second branch of his pet clinic opens without trouble. Lord Belmore even prepares a shop for him, though it's oddly stocked with rabbit supplies. Still, our boy doesn't mind. After all, it's free. And his connection with Belmore already seems invaluable. Business soon takes over Ojin's days, but he realizes he knows very little about this world, especially about the dragon who brought him here. That creature had promised to send him home, only to abandon him in this strange land. Determined to find answers, our hero decides to post a notice outside his new shop, an animal hospital hiring staff. Maybe he'll find someone who can manage both assistant and technician duties. When interviews begin, Ojin sits upright, studying the line of applicants. The first candidate, Thomas, proudly discusses his noble background, strict father, and gentle mother. Our protagonist listens for a moment but soon grows weary of the man's self-importance. The next candidate, Philip, claims his family has been in the animal business for generations. This sounds promising at first until he reveals they run a butcher shop. That's enough for Ojin to mentally cross him off the list. Apparently, finding normal people in this world is more challenging than expected. The third candidate steps forward, a man with a pale, tense expression and eyes that spell trouble. Our boy reminds himself not to judge by appearances, but his patience snaps when the man suddenly throws himself to the floor, begging to be hired. That seals it. Ojin decides he will absolutely judge people by how they look from now on. Before he can respond, a young woman steps out from the line of applicants. Without a word, she punches the man in the face, sending him flying across the room. She introduces herself as Selena, a roaming animal expert with experience in basic treatments. Her confidence and composure leave a strong impression, so Ojin hires her on the spot. The next afternoon, our protagonist sits inside his cozy new clinic, basking in the warm sunlight streaming through the window. It's already noon, and Selena still hasn't shown up. Maybe he hired too hastily again. He debates whether to post another job notice when there's a knock at the door. Expecting his new assistant, he opens it, only to find an unfamiliar man standing there. Minutes later, the man is seated comfortably, sipping tea while Ojin smiles politely. Inside, though, our hero is celebrating. He's finally gotten his first customer, marking the first step toward paying off his debts. He thinks back to his previous clinic, the one that failed due to his short temper. He vividly remembers snapping at a customer who refused to brush their dog's teeth, yelling until his reputation as a rude and insane vet spread like wildfire. This time, however, Ojin resolves to smile, stay calm, and charm money right out of his clients' wallets. Returning to the present, he asks about the man's pet. The stranger grins and points to his pocket, revealing a small lizard named Pojak. Our boy is almost relieved. It appears to be a normal creature for once rather than one of the bizarre animals that usually populate this world. That relief is short-lived when the man casually admits to grabbing its tail until it fell off. Ojin fights the urge to scold him and shifts his focus to the lizard. He carefully examines Pojak and notices its skin is dry and red, clear signs of improper shedding. When he mentions this, the man warns that Pojak can be aggressive. Almost immediately, the little creature proves him right by spitting a burst of fire straight at our protagonist. Before Ojin can react, Selena bursts through the door and knocks him aside, saving him from the attack. The flames scorch the wall behind them. Dazed and bleeding slightly from his mouth, Ojin mutters that getting hit might have been less painful. As he regains his composure, he realizes his first patient at the new branch is a salamander, a fire-breathing lizard that can't be handled barehanded. He wonders if the clinic even has anything fireproof. Meanwhile, the man gazes dreamily at Selena, calling her beautiful while she questions him about where he found the creature. He proudly explains he picked it up from the mountain behind the village, claiming it was love at first sight. Selena tells him that keeping a salamander is illegal, as they're endangered due to overhunting. Still, she reassures him that if they claim to be holding it temporarily for medical treatment, the authorities will likely overlook it as long as he releases the animal afterward. However, the man clutches Pojak tightly, his eyes filling with tears, and refuses to let go. Suddenly, he bolts for the door, shouting that no one can separate him from his beloved salamander. Ojin stands in disbelief, staring at the open doorway. Selena hesitates for a moment before our hero snaps at her to go after him. And just like that, the clinic's very first examination turns into a ridiculous chase through town. A fitting beginning to another unpredictable chapter in Ojin's new life. Ojin sends Selena ahead to chase after the man, and the market bursts into motion. The fruit stall lady, who had just been humming about how peaceful things felt without the Lord Reverend's constant interference, quickly realizes that peace never lasts. She ducks behind her stall as the commotion sweeps by, deciding it's best to remain uninvolved. The man darts through the crowd, clutching something tightly to his chest with desperate determination. While our boy follows, out of breath but unwilling to give up, the stall lady watches the chaos and murmurs that whatever is happening, it's not her concern. The fleeing man mutters frantically about people trying to steal Pojak from him. Our protagonist and Selena continue the chase until exhaustion finally slows them down. Catching her breath, she remarks that Ojin could use more exercise, then refocuses on the salamander's urgent condition. He admits the creature's molt has layered dangerously and requires immediate help. Selena's expression hardens as she recalls the risk. A salamander that fails to molt will eventually erupt, its inner fire destroying everything nearby. There's no time to rest. They must find the creature before disaster strikes. Meanwhile, believing he's safe, the man returns home. Relieved, he places Pojak on the table, calling it fate that they're together. His euphoria quickly transforms into artistic inspiration as he begins to sing, letting a strange melody fill the air. Suddenly, panic replaces his creative mood when PJ's body trembles and bursts into flames. In moments, his home is engulfed in fire. Coughing amid the smoke, the man tries to reason with the salamander, reaching out as though affection could calm the blaze. Pojak answers with another fiery blast, the flames growing even fiercer. Selena arrives just in time to drag the man to safety while our hero braces himself against the heat, determined to restrain the creature gone wild. He prayerfully thinks a fire extinguisher would be useful right about now. Then his pendant glows. When the light fades, Ojin finds exactly that in his hand. There's no time to question this miracle. He rushes forward, dousing the flames until the salamander's resistance fades and the room falls quiet, save for the faint hiss of steam. As the fire dies away, Selena checks their surroundings. The man sits amid the ruins, muttering that the rampage must have been caused by the failed molt. He insists he'll care for Pojak better next time, his tone clinging to misplaced affection. Our protagonist regards him quietly, wondering if the man has any idea what true care means. Love without understanding, Ojin thinks, is just selfishness dressed up as devotion. Later in the forest, Poj has finally molted. Selena notes how much livelier it looks while our boy stares at its size in disbelief. The man gazes at the salamander with bittersweet pride, murmuring that it's time to let it return to the wild. He watches as Pojak disappears among the trees, whispering promises of care and remembrance that no creature could possibly understand. Ajahn rolls his eyes at the sentiment, thinking this will only bring more trouble, but the man barely notices. In his own mind, this farewell is noble. The moment unexpectedly turns tender as Pojak pauses on a distant rock and releases a massive fireball into the sky. The flames bloom into radiant fireworks, painting dusk in brilliant color. The man stares upward, overcome with emotion, while our protagonist quietly acknowledges that the treatment at last is complete. Days later, the same man reappears in the town square, now calling himself Roya. He plays guitar beside the fountain. Children dancing around him as he sings an eccentric tune about Ojin's adventures. The song spreads like wildfire, lifting the spirits of everyone who hears it. Selina observes from afar, half amused, while our hero stands beside her, unimpressed but faintly curious. When he notices people talking about bringing their pets to him, Ojin even finds himself praising Roya's singing. Soon after, the consequences arrive. Outside Ojin's pet clinic, a crowd forms so large it blocks the entire street. Dozens shout his name, demanding treatment and desperate for attention. Our boy sits frozen, realizing his quiet days are over. Selina, eyeing the endless line, mutters that she might as well resign. Amid the clamor and confusion, Ojin realizes their little clinic has quite accidentally become the busiest place in town. It's a regular morning. Birds chirp outside Ojin's clinic as a long line of people gathers at the door. He finishes examining a patient and lets them know the session is over, advising a follow-up to check progress. Selina stands beside him, commenting that at this rate, he'll become a corpse before next week and should earn while he can. Our boy calls for the next patient, reflecting on how it's been 2 months since opening and the second clinic is thriving. Thanks in part to those cheerful morning birds. The first few days were rough with so many customers, but after seeing the earnings, things settled down. A customer pokes their head in and asks if they're still open. Selina immediately says they're closed, but Ojin lets the person in anyway. While treating the patient, our protagonist reflects on what he's learned about this world. Outside, people chat about their pets. One mentions Coco hasn't been eating well. Another points out a cat's bloodshot eye. Dogs and cats remain close to humans here, though their illnesses can be quite different. Later, Ojin stretches, remarking that the day has been exhausting. Selina informs him the next case is the last. Curious, he asks what animal it is, and Selina explains, it's a Shar-Pei, once used for hunting, now popular pets, but aggressive toward anyone except their owners, leading to the highest abandonment rate. Our hero mutters that people who buy pets just to follow trends ought to disappear. He recalls hearing that shamans can grow as tall as a person's torso with claws and teeth sharp enough to pierce a wild boar's hide. Selina warns him to be careful. The next customer presents a Samoyed pup, visibly exhausted and only 2 months old. The owner explains it's been limping since yesterday. Ojin examines the leg, noting a puppy this age should have healthy joints. Checking the paw, he finds a thorn lodged in it, removes it with tweezers, disinfects the wound, and assures them it will heal. The little shaman wobbles around, and our protagonist watches quietly while Selina glances over, mildly curious. As the owner leaves, Ojin sighs in relief, saying the day is finally over. Selina observes that he looked happy. He seems puzzled when she asks whether it's because the puppy was cute or because his shift has ended. Selina teases that it's rare to see him happy for reasons other than money. Ojin replies that none of today's patients were seriously injured and explains that the hardest part of being a vet is seeing sick animals. The more he cares, the more it hurts, so he tries to remain detached. His thoughts wander to a customer from his old world, someone who left their pet for an extra month while vacationing. Our boy recalls greeting them sharply and realizes that since then he started scolding guardians more often. As closing time approaches, Selina notes it's getting dark. Ojin mentions the large number of customers and urges her to move faster before sunset. Suddenly, the same man from the interview appears outside calling for help. Ojin turns to Selina, asking if she can handle exorcisms. She responds that maybe she could if physical attacks actually worked on spirits. The man bursts in, grabs our protagonist, and drags him out through the window, leaving Selena speechless. Later in the forest, Ajin lies on the ground while the man apologizes repeatedly, insisting he didn't expect our hero to be so out of shape that he couldn't climb a hill. Ajin demands to know who he is. Realizing this isn't a ghost, the man introduces himself as Schwinn, an administrative civil servant for the territory, and explains he brought our protagonist there after hearing about his talent for calming the Lord's rabbit. Schwein asks him to catch a stray dog. Ajin refuses, arguing he's a vet, not an animal rescuer. Selena, appearing nearby, adds pointedly that they're not a rescue team. Schwinn insists they're the only hope left, explaining that 2 months ago, the stray took over a spot in the middle of the mountain, right where their new trail construction is set to begin. They've tried to catch it, but the dog is too fast, and construction starts the day after tomorrow. If they can't capture it, troops will be sent, and the animal will be killed on sight. Our hero falls silent before finally asking where the dog is now, clarifying he's never captured animals and only wants to observe first. Schwein agrees, saying it's a bit further up the mountain. Ajin reminds him he hasn't agreed yet. He's just there to take a look. Selena, with a knowing smile, remarks that he's definitely going to end up doing it. At the site, Schwinn points out where the stray usually stays. Suddenly, a noise catches their attention, and a shaman emerges from the shadows. Ajin recognizes it at once, while Selena notes that many people raise shamans, but just as many end up abandoning them. Many people keep shamans these days because it has become a trend. Yet, most end up neglected and forgotten. When Ajin observes the state of the shaman before him, he can tell it has been surviving alone for nearly 2 months and probably hasn't eaten properly that entire time. Suddenly, a strange sound echoes from the forest, startling everyone. Assuming it to be some sort of monster, our protagonist turns toward the noise just as the shaman lets out a piercing shriek and lunges at him. Selena swiftly steps in, pulling our boy out of harm's way and warning that it's dangerous to stay so close. Ojin remarks that turning your back and running from an enraged dog is the worst possible reaction, while Selena retorts that doing nothing would just let the animal tear them apart. Then our hero explains that running will only provoke the creature further. They need to find a way to divert its focus. Before he can finish his thought, the shaman unexpectedly goes still. Everyone freezes, stunned by the sudden calm, and our protagonist wonders aloud why it stopped. He recalls Schwein describing the animal as a hunting dog and points out that such a creature, if truly angered, wouldn't retreat so easily. Yet, right before their eyes, the shaman quietly wanders back into the forest. Selena mutters that no one can truly grasp what goes on in a dog's mind. Meanwhile, Schwinn explains how the creature frequently chases people away, its behavior having become such a nuisance that villagers from the nearby settlement send in constant complaints. As Ajin listens, he sinks into thought before curiosity takes hold. He asks what kind of complaints they've received, and Schwinn describes how the locals refer to the animal as a vicious beast that roams the mountain, one they consider dangerous and demand to be captured. Our hero reflects on this, then wonders aloud if anyone has ever actually been injured by it. Schwinn starts to agree instinctively, but after pausing for a moment, admits that not a single person has ever been harmed. Turning to Selena, our protagonist recalls that she once mentioned the loyalty of shamans toward their masters and asks if she still believes it. Selena confirms that she does, and Ajin's expression shifts slightly, as though something has just clicked in his mind. The next morning, Ajin and Selena set out toward the nearest village at the base of the mountain. Their focus shifts from confronting the stray to uncovering the story behind it. Now, our boy seeks the dog's former owner, believing that understanding its past is the key to reaching it. Though time is short and other methods might seem easier, he knows that simply trapping the animal with food will not work. The dog's frail, hungry body speaks of something stronger than instinct, an unbroken bond that hunger cannot override. As they walk, memories and thoughts intertwine in Ajin's mind. He remembers how some owners issue a gentle command for their pets to stay, assuring them they'll return soon, only to disappear and never come back. That same kind of loyalty and betrayal must lie at the heart of this dog's suffering. Our protagonist has seen people capable of abandoning those who trust them most. And the idea fills him with quiet anger. Resolute, our hero promises himself that when they finally uncover the owner, that person will be forced to confront what they've done and witness how the loyal creature they left behind has endured. As they begin making inquiries throughout the village, a pattern quickly emerges. A local tells Ajahn that a woman named Gabrielle's husband has been unable to continue his work because of the dog that roams the mountain. Parents refuse to let their children near the forest, fearful of what lurks there, and even passing youngsters echo the same stories of danger. An old man vaguely mutters about losing money many years ago, though his words seem disconnected from the rest. Still, one truth becomes clear. The entire village harbors a deep resentment toward the stray. After hours of questioning, our boy and Selena stop at a quiet corner of the street. Weary from hearing the same fearful accounts, Ajahn begins to suspect that perhaps the dog's owner isn't from this village at all. Selena agrees, noting that if nothing else, everyone they've met shares a common hostility toward the animal. It's then that a woman with long hair approaches them. She has overheard their questions and, with a solemn expression, mentions that they're looking for Jake, the man who once owned the dog. She urges them to follow her and leads them toward Jake's house. Ajahn notices how distant the home is, almost hidden among the trees, and the woman explains that Jake lived alone, separated from the villagers, which is why so few people knew him. When they reached the small wooden house, she stopped near a modest grave by the entrance and quietly revealed that Jake had died 2 months earlier in a landslide. She explains he had no family and that she herself arranged the funeral. Furthermore, she insists that Jake never abandoned his dog. He simply never made it back. The woman also confesses she once tried to bring the dog home but failed. And now, with sadness heavy in her tone, she begs them to help the animal whom she calls Max. The weight of her words sinks deeply into Ajahn. A quiet remorse fills him as he realizes how wrongly he had judged the situation. Our hero offers a silent prayer for Jake's peace, expressing his regret, and makes a firm promise that they will save Max, no matter what it requires. Later, back in the forest, Schwinn remarks to the officers who have just arrived that he expected them the following day. Noting they must have finished their prior mission earlier than anticipated, he suggests postponing their current task to kill Max until tomorrow. But the officers dismiss the idea. One of them insists there's no reason to wait and that the matter should be handled immediately. Since the villagers already despise the dog, he reasons no one will object if they end a day ahead of schedule. Back at Jake's house, Ajahn steps inside and immediately notices the scent of herbal medicine lingering in the air. A clear sign that Jake was an herbalist. Selena suggests taking anything carrying the owner's scent for now and points towards some clothes hanging nearby. Our hero's eyes drift to a photo frame on the shelf showing Jake and Max together. He wonders what could have happened to someone who cared so deeply for his dog. Then Selena notices a photograph on the wall and points it out. It's a picture of a man, Drake. She remarks that Jake must have been searching for one. Our boy recalls seeing a mandrake in a movie once, and Selena explains that it's the plant that screams, a rare and extremely difficult specimen to collect. Both remember the strange noise from the forest the previous day. Despite its danger, the mandrake is incredibly valuable, something every herbalist dreams of finding. Meanwhile, Max sits in front of his cave, staring at the sky, lost in thought as he remembers his owner. It was raining that day when he and Jake took shelter inside the cave. Jake laughed at the sudden downpour, wondering if they should wait until it stopped before heading out. Lighting a fire, he placed a woolen blanket over Max, telling him to stay still or he'd catch a cold. Max cuddled close, and Jake, though exhausted, smiled and said they were lucky to have found shelter. While looking around, Jake noticed a plant growing near the cave wall. Recognizing the shape of its leaves, he realized it was a mandrake. Astonished, he admitted he never thought he'd see one outside of books. Excited, he decided to return home to get his gear, telling Max to wait and promising he'd be right back. Max barked softly, but Jake reassured him it wasn't far. Smiling, he stepped out into the rain. Then, a sudden landslide of massive rocks came crashing down, killing him instantly. Time passed. The fire in the cave died out, but Max continued to wait faithfully. The next week, some tourists passed by. One of them noticed the dog had been there for a while. They assumed he'd been abandoned and, feeling pity, decided to feed him, but when they approached, Max shrieked and backed away in fear, driving them off. Startled, the tourists left, muttering that the dog was dangerous and that it was no wonder the owner had left it. Max returned to the cave and sat again, waiting for Jake, unaware he would never return. In the present, as Max recalls Jake, the officers approach. One suggests there's no need to rush since it's getting late. They should head to the lodge soon. Standing before Max, they ready their tranquilizer darts, enough to take down a shaman. Schwein pleads with them to wait one more hour, explaining that he's hired someone to help rescue the dog. From what Schwein has seen, Max has never hurt anyone and is simply a dog with a story. The officer, unmoved, says they aren't there to listen to a dog story. Their job is to protect the residents, and that's all that matters. As he raises his gun and aims, Max pants heavily. Just as the officer is about to pull the trigger, Selena and Ajin arrive, stopping him. Selena insists they must rescue the stray, not harm it. At that moment, Max sees an illusion of his owner standing before him, smiling gently. The figure tells him that he's come to get him and that Max has waited a long time. Overcome with joy, Max moves forward, tail wagging, believing his owner has finally returned. Our protagonist steps closer, his voice low and soft as he admits he isn't the one Max has been waiting for, but tells him it's time to go home. A lone night settles over the forest where a deer runs for its life. Chased by a wild creature whose glowing yellow eyes cut through the darkness, its sharp shriek echoes through the trees, shattering the stillness of the woods. By morning, the quiet inside Ajin's clinic is disrupted as a customer bursts in, frantically begging for help with their pet. Our hero looks down to find a ping-ponging panda so overweight it can hardly roll over. He mutters in disbelief while the owner insists the panda has grown weak and barely eats. Only 7 meals a day now. Ojin sighed, warning that if it doesn't regain a healthy weight, it could fall gravely ill. The owner looks shocked, unwilling to believe it, and our boy calls for the next patient without another word. Schwinn steps in with his usual courteous smile, greeting our protagonist politely. The sight of him reminds Ojin of Max, the dog that once came down from the mountain after losing his owner. Max had lingered for days by his master's grave, unable to accept Jake's death, pitted by everyone in the village until he finally opened up to the one who visited and cared for him, Schwein. When Ojin asks what brings him there and if something has happened to Max, Schwein denies it and instead reveals a Mundara plant from his bag. Selena notices something odd about it. Its root is exposed above the soil, unlike most mandrakes that prefer to stay buried deep. Schwein explains that Jake, before his passing, had discovered the Mundara and decided to keep it as a memento. Yet when they tried to replant it, the Mundara kept forcing itself out of the ground, screaming endlessly day and night until everyone in the village was forced to wear earplugs. Some even suffered ruptured eardrums. Selena mentions that such behavior can happen, as mandrakes are known to be temperamental about their surroundings. Schwein sighs that the plant has become impossible to manage, noting that it is quiet now only because it is asleep, but once it wakes chaos begins. He pleads for Ojin to take it. Our protagonist refuses, insisting he treats animals, not plants, and that anything that screams can't even be considered one. Schwein insists it is neither plant nor animal, but something far worse, a demon. Ojin retorts that if that's the case, the church would be a better place to take it. Before another word is exchanged, the Mundara stirs. Schwein panics, shouting that it's waking, and hastily leaves it behind, fleeing the clinic with his companions before our hero can stop them. Frustrated, Ojin curses after them, muttering that he's seen people abandon many things, but never a plant. Selena quickly covers the mandrake with a glass shield and reminds him that mandrakes are valuable herbs. Every part of them, from leaf to root, can revive the dying. Our boy grumbles about their worth if they can't be controlled. Suddenly, the mandrill opens its eyes. Selena warns him to cover his ears before it screams, fearing for their eardrums. Ajin, panicking, complains about his missing noise-canceling headphones and braces himself. But instead of screaming, the Mundara smiles. Confused, he watches as Selena studies its behavior. She realizes it seems to like him and asks him to take out his necklace. As soon as he does, the Mundara's eyes widen and it begins dancing with joy. Our protagonist can hardly believe it while Selena laughs, saying it looks as happy as a sunflower toy she once saw. He mutters about how disgusting that comparison sounds. But Selena simply tells him to raise it in his room for now. Despite his protests, he ends up doing just that. Later that night, a loud knock wakes our hero. Half asleep, he complains that night visits cost extra until a woman rushes in with a wounded dog bleeding heavily. Seeing the deep gashes, our protagonist mutters that the injuries are too severe to stop the bleeding. Selena reminds him that mandrake leaves have strong clotting properties, and at his instruction, she approaches the plant. The Mundara watches her suspiciously, so she hesitates, suggesting Ajin should ask it himself. He grumbles at the absurdity of asking a plant for permission but does it anyway. As soon as he asks for a leaf, the mandrake smiles, dances, and hums softly. Though baffled, our boy takes the leaf and manages to stop the bleeding, saving the dog's life. The woman weeps with gratitude as our protagonist yawns and tells her to return for follow-up care before heading back to bed. Only half an hour later, another urgent knock disturbs his rest. This time, a man stands at the door with a mauled deer in his arms, begging for help. The animal's body is covered in brutal wounds, and Ojin grimly notes that they aren't from hunting but from someone who seemed to enjoy the cruelty. He mutters about a psychopath being responsible, confusing the villagers, who ask if that is some kind of new monster. When a little girl quietly explains that it is Baron Doyle's pet wolf who does such things for amusement, our protagonist's disbelief turns into outrage. He curses the noble, demanding to know how such behavior is allowed, shouting about the lack of animal protection laws. The villagers remind him that the Baron is untouchable, a noble. Our hero rails against the injustice, shouting about freedom, law, and democracy, concepts the others have never even heard of, until Selena reminds him to focus on treating the deer. A week later, chaos erupts outside the clinic. A large crowd gathers, all shouting for the doctor to save their pets. Exhausted and overwhelmed, Ajin joins the uproar, ranting that he can't live like this anymore and calling for a class revolution. Our boy leads the crowd toward Doyle's mansion, chanting accusations against the Baron and demanding justice for the abused animals until the Baron's guards arrive. When they ask for our protagonist, he mutters that their intelligence is scarily fast and steps forward, claiming his name. To his surprise, the guards bow and respectfully escort him to the castle. Inside, he finds a massive blood-fang wolf lying on the floor, gravely wounded. Baron Doyle stands beside it, desperate, begging Ajin to save his beloved pet, promising anything in return. Our hero and Selena stand frozen, stunned by the sight of the very creature that had caused so much suffering. After a week of beast attacks, the townspeople gather, whispering about a magical creature spotted in the western forest. Rumors spread that the banished wolf has been killed, and a giant man-eating monster now stalks the woods, attacking people after preying on animals. Fear sweeps through the crowd. Some believe the village is doomed and talk of fleeing to the lower settlement. Others insist there's no need to worry since Baron Doyle has launched a monster subjugation operation. They mention a massive trap set in the forest and soldiers patrolling day and night. The villagers praise the Baron as dependable, convinced they live safely under his protection. Our hero listens, fully aware the truth is quite different. He recalls seeing the Baron weeping and shouting for his men to catch the monster that attacked his child while his servants worked to calm him and quietly handled the situation. To Ajin, the scene resembles media manipulation from his own world. Selena stands beside him, noticing the wary look on his face. Our protagonist reflects that most of the injured animals brought to the clinic were attacked near the eastern forest close to the village, while the incident with the Baron's wolf happened deep in the west. Despite this, the Baron's men continue to focus their search on the western woods, ignoring the east entirely. Selena finds it suspicious as well. The villagers rarely set foot in the western forest, a place rumored to be haunted. As they discuss, a man from the glass workshop calls them inside, announcing that the items Ojin ordered, the syringes, are ready. They are mouth-blown. Reinforced glass mixed with albarium powder, resistant to heat and shock. Our protagonist examines them, impressed by the craftsmanship, calling the technology remarkable and marveling that they are handmade. The craftsman confides that the process was difficult and insists he cannot make more. Ojin pays him generously, establishing a partnership despite the man's reluctance. Gradually, the clinic fills with several new pieces of equipment. Renovations begin, and Selena inspects the layout, surprised by the organized modern structure. Our boy thinks to himself that this finally feels like a real hospital. One day, gestures behind her, and our protagonist realizes she means the Mundure. As he approaches, the Mundure frowns. Ojin explains that he only needs a few leaves, but the plant suddenly screams so loudly that everyone, Selena, Pio, and our hero, covers their ears. The Mundure starts crying, leaving him frustrated. Pio suggests that perhaps it feels neglected since he's been focused on Sunja lately. Our protagonist admits that he feels awkward around plants. Pio advises him to give it a name at least. When he hesitates, the Mundure cries even louder. Defeated, he names it Kim Mandal. Immediately, the plant stops crying and begins dancing happily. Ojin takes 2 leaves, thinking to himself how unsettlingly affectionate the plants and animals of this world are. Selena quietly observes, then asks to see his necklace. She examines it, finding nothing unusual. When she puts it on and tries to pet Sunja and Mundle, both react aggressively. Selena concludes that the necklace's bond works only for Ojin. She asks how he activates its power and he explains that focusing his thoughts creates a tightness in his chest, which then releases energy. Selena realizes that this power might be linked to his heart. Ojin adds that touching the necklace draws the creatures to him as if they're expecting food. While feeding Sanja his favorite cho snack, Selena notices the glow of energy and deduces that our boy is unknowingly feeding his mana to the creatures. The thought alarms her that such a connection could be dangerous. Meanwhile, Pio announces that the crushed leaves are ready and has prepared a potion from them. She asks if she should bring another batch, and our hero agrees. Selena watches him in silence, deep in thought. Everything about Kim Ojin, the energy around him. The way life responds to his presence seems beyond ordinary. For the first time, she begins to wonder if he truly is the spirit of healing the legend spoke of. At Luriel's mansion, she enters her father's room with his medicine and finds him lying on the floor. She rushes to help him up, quickly realizing that he had tried to stand because Lumi wanted to stay near the window. Despite his frailty, he insists he's fine. Luriel worries that his weak bones make such movements dangerous. But he simply responds that his time is limited anyway. She protests, insisting his illness can still improve, yet he believes death comes not only from disease but also from losing hope. Tears fall as she begs him to stop speaking that way, but he refuses. At that moment, Ojin arrives with Selena, Pio, and the rest of his group, interrupting the emotional scene. He boldly declares that people die not from illness or fate, but from misinformation, incorrect prescriptions, bad habits, and a lack of proper care. Both Luriel and her father are startled by the sudden appearance. Our protagonist introduces himself and explains that Lumi's inability to fly isn't due to old age but rather the side effects of the drugs her father has been taking. The father is confused, insisting he's the one taking the medicine, not Lumi. Our hero clarifies that flying fish still retain their aquatic grooming instincts. They clean the food or individuals they care about. Lumi, by grooming her father's hair and beard, absorbed the medicine's residue through contact. Luriel recalls how Lumi had spent nights near her father, brushing against him. The old man realizes the truth and mutters that this explains why his beard always appeared so shiny. Ojin confirms this and presents syringes containing the cure he developed. He explains that the fish will regain its energy within a day or 2. The father jokes he'll shave everything off to avoid repeating the problem. Our protagonist begins the treatment, holding each fish while Pio restrains them so he can inject the medicine. When finished, he notes that it's a fast-acting drug. Moments later, Lumi begins to stir and suddenly lifts into the air, glowing faintly as she flies toward the father. He gazes at her, realizing it isn't a dream. One by one, the other fish begin to glow and rise, their bodies emitting a soft blue light. The entire room fills with shimmering brightness as the fish circle above. Luriel and her father watch in awe. The sight reminds her father of the day he proposed to her mother using glowing fish that soared into the sky just like this. Holding Lumi, he is deeply moved. Pio observes quietly, understanding that the reaction came from contact with Ajin's blood and mana and realizing that he isn't ordinary. Selena reaches a similar conclusion, wondering if he's truly the one spoken of in the prophecy, the spirit of healing. Later, Selena meets with Kaelin to discuss it. Kallian believes everything aligns perfectly with the prophecy and asserts that Ajin's bond with Monakaros is irrefutable proof. Selena questions his decision to give our protagonist the ring that does not belong to him, but Kaelin insists that the original owner would have approved. He admits that rumors of the spirit of healing will soon spread across the world and that they plan to use this to uncover the truth behind hidden forces rather than simply chasing enemies. Selena realizes this is why Baron Doyle was released, to draw out those working behind the scenes. Kallian reassures her that Ajin won't be harmed and points out that it's no coincidence she met him in this village. Selena recalls first seeing our hero when he subdued a giant rabbit in the village while wearing his mysterious necklace. Although she admits he is unique, she remains doubtful that he is the spirit of healing. Kayan tells her to keep watching, reminding her that the prophecy doesn't only speak of salvation, it also warns of the trials that must come before it. Another quiet morning unfolds at Ajin's clinic. Inside, a blob known as the bloop sits hunched on a leaf once again. Even though its furry had already been charged the previous week, our hero notices it and grows irritated, wondering why it's still here. Meanwhile, Selena is tending to the creature, explaining that she's looking after one of the 3 bloops. She handles it carelessly, prompting our protagonist to step in. He recalls that blobs are divided into core types, which contain a core in their heads, and non-core types, which multiply easily. Containing a core type prevents further division, but the one Selena is handling lacks a core and can reproduce when stressed. Selena confirms that it's a sensitive specimen that multiplies under pressure. Our boy becomes uneasy, all too aware of the dangers of keeping such creatures. Bloops can reproduce uncontrollably and have wiped out entire villages when mishandled. Keeping one in the clinic alongside volatile creatures like the Mundere and Sunja feels reckless. He questions the decision silently, realizing Selena hasn't obtained the owner's permission, having acted on her own under the guise of cooperation. Pio, watching the exchange, grows nervous, subtly suggesting that perhaps it's better not to get involved. Our protagonist remembers hearing that elves who cover their ears often do so to hide criminal markings burned in as punishment. The thought lingers in his mind. Selena's habit of acting first. Her avoidance of personal questions and her aggressive temperament all raise doubts about her past. Ajin briefly considers dismissing her but decides against it given the clinic's heavy workload. Before he can dwell further, Selena signals that it's opening time and the routine continues. Elsewhere at Baron Doyle's castle, the Baron speaks through Han Lma crystal with a mysterious figure. The man demands to know why the Atherin order appeared at Ajin's clinic. The Baron explains that they burst in suddenly, mentioned a divine beast, interrupted his work, and left. The man grows angry, accusing the Baron of letting the Atherin order take the Monascaros. The Baron apologizes and promises to recover it but adds that he doesn't need to steal the beast as it's already with Kim Ajin. The man is shocked, knowing Monascaros cannot typically coexist with humans. The Baron insists it follows our protagonist willingly. The man orders him to silence everyone who knows, calling him incompetent. The connection ends, leaving the Baron frustrated after a long scolding. He instructs his butler to summon Theodore and Alex, who are currently on leave. The butler mentions they were granted time off after complaining about overtime. The Baron, angered, cancels their leave and demands they be brought back. Realizing the problem is only getting worse, Meanwhile, at the marketplace, rumors spread rapidly about the ethereal order's appearance. Townspeople gossip about seeing the group in person and wonder why such a powerful order would visit a countryside clinic. Word circulates that they came because of a rare divine species. Some claim our hero is not just an ordinary doctor but someone from another world. Others repeat tales of him subduing a man-infused beast and taming a divine creature barehanded. Stories twist fact and fantasy until the entire town buzzes with speculation. As evening falls, the rumors take on a new tone. People begin calling Ajin the spirit of healing, a figure once believed to be female according to ancient prophecy. Now they say the spirit is a man instead, and whoever gains his favor will rule the world. A woman with long pink hair discusses the rumor with a brown-haired companion, remarking that the prophecy's meaning might shift with this new interpretation. In the noble district of Manhwa, Adrian arrives at his clinic, expecting the usual bustle, but finding the place silent. He comments on the emptiness and learns from the butler that no patients have arrived since morning. Suspecting Count Downey of interference, he vows to retaliate. His assistant quietly mentions that the drop in clients might be linked to a new vet clinic in Belmont. Ajin's. Adrian dismisses the idea, reasoning that nobles would never visit a commoner's establishment. Yet, his composure falters when he hears that Lady Marianne has cancelled her appointment to visit Ajin's clinic instead. The realization enrages him. Slamming his hand on the desk, Adrian orders his carriage at once, determined to confront the man responsible for his humiliation. Adrian, born into nobility, possessed intelligence, talent, and striking looks, qualities that made his decision to become a veterinarian seem unusual to many. He, however, had a simple reason. He genuinely loved people who adored their pets. With practiced charm, he often reassured anxious owners that their beloved animals would recover, taking satisfaction in easing their worries. Adrian always maintained a clear line between personal and professional life. Except when it came to one woman, Lady Marianne Astrid. From the moment she entered his clinic, his heart had chosen her. He often believed he had become a vet solely to treat her unicorn. That conviction turned to bitterness when he learned that Lady Marianne had chosen someone else, a commoner, to treat Lulu, her unicorn. Angered, he ordered his clinic closed for the day and set out for the Astro estate. Immediately at the mansion, Marianne's mother received him politely but with evident disinterest, questioning his unannounced visit. Adrian expressed concern for Lulu, describing the unicorn as sensitive and implying that entrusting her to a random commoner was irresponsible. Her mother corrected him. Kim Ajin, the new vet, was actually a woman. The revelation caught him off guard. She added that though a commoner, our hero was said to be extremely skilled and so beautiful that people called her a fairy or a spirit. The idea unsettled Adrian, who began imagining what kind of woman could be compared to a fairy. Perhaps a golden-haired angel or a mysterious dark beauty. His fantasies were interrupted when Marianne's mother admitted she had fabricated the story to test his reaction and promptly ordered the servants to escort him out. Humiliated but still defiant, Adrian insisted he was not obsessed with women, only devoted to Lady Marianne. His declaration only amused her mother, who had him thrown out anyway. Seated in his carriage, Adrian fumed over the insult and resolved to meet Kim Ajin himself. He prided himself on understanding unicorns better than most, knowing that they judged people by scent, despised the smell of blood and sweat, and could be violent toward men. Unicorns adored cleanliness and pleasant perfume, and he believed his meticulous grooming made him uniquely suited to approach them. He recalled his own trials earning a unicorn's trust, and how his strategy of bathing twice daily and wearing the same perfume as their owner had worked wonders. He was certain that a stinky commoner ignorant of perfume would surely provoke Lulu's rage, providing him the perfect chance to intervene heroically before Marianne's eyes. The thought made him blush and laugh to himself while his coachman silently eyed his delusions. When Adrian's carriage reached Belmore, he found a crowd gathered outside the clinic, murmuring in excitement at the sight of a unicorn. Confident that our protagonist was about to embarrass himself, Adrian prepared to enjoy the spectacle. That confidence shattered when he saw our hero calmly seated on Lulu's back. The unicorn utterly at ease. The crowd marveled, and Marianne herself admitted she had never seen Lulu allow anyone else to ride her. Adrian stood frozen, unable to believe the scene. He convinced himself there must be trickery involved. Perhaps magic from the elf woman standing beside Ajin. His suspicions crumbled when Lulu suddenly bit the elf's arm, leaving her stunned and silent. Ajin immediately tended to the injury and ushered the crowd away while murmurs spread among the onlookers. Determined not to retreat in humiliation, Adrian decided to spy on them. He spotted an open window and began climbing a nearby tree, recalling his academy days as a tree-climbing champion. From the window, he saw our boy treating the elf's bite wound, calmly applying herbs and wrapping it with an unfamiliar technique. Adrian's eyes narrowed at the strange crest glowing faintly on Ojin's hand. Shock struck him as he recognized it, the symbol of House Celestian, the noblest of all elven families. He stared in disbelief, realizing that the so-called commoner vet bore the mark of the highest elven lineage. Ajin notices a faint mark on Selena's hand while bandaging it and quickly realizes that what he thought was a minor wound actually carries poison from the creature's saliva. He remarks that they were lucky it wasn't worse. Selena, reflecting on the creature's earlier reaction, observes that it showed unusual hostility, something rare for its species. Moran apologizes for the incident and insists on covering the medical costs, but our hero refuses, admitting that it was their own carelessness. When Marianne gestures towards Selena and asks if she works at the clinic, Ajin explains that she's an assistant doctor handling prescriptions and physical tasks around the place. Marianne acknowledges the arrangement, then comments that despite Ajin's reputation, the clinic seems rather small for someone with his skill. The remark sends our protagonist back to memories of his previous workplace. A cramped, noisy building plagued with a clogged toilet, broken heating, and constant complaints about animals. Before he can finish his thoughts, Marianne interrupts, expressing sympathy for his past struggles and admiration for his achievements. Her tone softens into flustered praise as she compliments him and suddenly suggests her family could sponsor a larger clinic, leaving our boy uncertain whether she's proposing business or something else entirely. Before the tension settles, Lulu suddenly lashes out at Sunja, sending the room into chaos. Both Marani and our protagonist rush to restrain them as Selena observes that unicorns, despite their resemblance to Monocaros, typically get along well with smaller creatures. Marin bristles at the implication that Lulu's temperament is at fault, and the conversation quickly escalates between her and Selena. Accusations about manners, bribed reservations, and noble entitlement fill the air. Pio mutters that nobles really do think differently, earning a glare from Marianne. As the atmosphere grows heated, Lulu thrashes wildly, striking a bookshelf and knocking it over. Suddenly, a loud crash erupts. The window shatters and Adrian tumbles through, landing face first on the floor. Everyone freezes as Selena halts the falling bookshelf midair, saving it from collapse. The group stares in disbelief, unsure if the intruder is even alive. Adrian lifts his head, bloodied but smiling, and addresses Marianne with exaggerated relief. While Marianne stammers in shock, Pio demands to know who he is. Adrian introduces himself grandly as Adrian Heaven Crown, kisses Pio's hand, and declares his devotion to protecting all beautiful life. Ajin stares at him, inwardly appalled by the theatrical entrance and pretentious tone, comparing Adrian to an overly dramatic influencer. When asked why he entered through a window, Adrian responds indignantly, insisting he is Lulu's primary physician and accusing our protagonist of mistreating her. The accusation quickly turns into an argument. Ian insists Lulu is fine, while Adrian calls him an unqualified fraud and even brands him a side-hooking bastard. Confused, Jean turns to Selena for an explanation, and she clarifies that it's an insult for a deceitful womanizer who lures people in like a carnivorous plant. Realization dawns on our hero a beat too late, deepening his disbelief. Moran intervenes, scolding Adrian for his vulgarity, but Adrian presses on, interrogating Ojin about his romantic history. In the midst of the confrontation, Adrian notices a mark on Ojin's hand and accuses him of being tied to a noble bloodline or something even more scandalous. Pio blurts out that it must be an engagement ring, causing everyone to look at our boy in shock. Flustered, he explains that the token was a gift from someone named Kion, but his clarification only deepens the confusion. Before anyone can question further, Lulu begins trembling violently, sweat breaking out along her skin. Moments later, she collapses and everyone rushes to her side. Ajin examines her quickly. Her pupils react normally, and though her breathing is heavy, it isn't critical. He calls for Pio to bring a candle and stethoscope, piecing together the cause. Adrian watches, then grimly announces his own conclusion. Lulu is until she's pregnant. Adrian examines Lulu and concludes that she is expecting. Marianne, initially disbelieving, struggles to accept his diagnosis, convinced that the unicorn's isolation in the castle's greenhouse makes pregnancy impossible. Selena supports Adrian's suspicion, noting that Lulu's recent behavioral changes, especially her heightened vigilance, align with early signs of pregnancy. When Adrian introduces a medical device to detect internal sounds, Marianne follows his instructions and, using the tool, identifies Lulu's heartbeat, then another, smaller and distinct, coming from within her abdomen. Overwhelmed by the revelation, she collapses and Adrian catches her. Meanwhile, our protagonist calmly explains that the device is called a stethoscope. Adrian is astonished by its accuracy, impressed by how clearly it transmits even the faintest internal sounds. Working together, Adrian and Ajin determine that Lulu is about 4 months along. Marianne rejects the idea again, insisting that Lulu has not left the greenhouse during that time. Her claim only deepens the mystery since the unicorn had been secluded in preparation for an arranged mating with Prince Theo's prized horse, Shark. Despite these precautions, the evidence of pregnancy is undeniable. Lulu is transferred to the ICU where Ajin administers fluids and electrolytes through N4 to counter dehydration and malnutrition caused by persistent vomiting. The others observe in fascination, noting the directness of a treatment that bypasses digestion entirely. Silence settles as Marianne tries to process the situation. Selena breaks the quiet, reasoning that the arranged meeting with the prince's horse would likely have failed since unicorns rarely choose partners and often remain single for life unless they meet one truly worthy. On rare occasions, an exceptional pairing produces a legendary hybrid with a golden body. Adrian suggests sending Lulu to the palace as a royal gift to explain the situation directly to His Highness. Believing the prince would welcome such a rare creature, Selena dismisses the idea as unreliable, reminding them that stories of hybrid unicorns are mostly myth and that no one yet knows who the father is. Adrian points out the many distinguished horses raised under Lady Morenes's care, any of which could be possible candidates. Sif was freed and admired for speed and beauty. Tara, valued for endurance. Dolly, known for charm, and Black Thunder, famous for strength. Moran concedes that identifying the true partner is essential before any decision can be made. When Adrian volunteers to assist, Marini instead appeals to Ojin, hoping his medical insight might uncover the truth. He declines, reminding her that a stethoscope cannot determine lineage. Adrian intervenes, acknowledging that Ojin's instincts and concern for Lulu make him more suited than anyone else to help. Selena adds that the answer may already be close at hand since pregnant unicorns typically display distress when separated from their mates. Yet, Lulu remained calm throughout the journey. Tracing the timeline, Marian realizes that Lulu's agitation only began after arriving at their destination. The carriage route provides the first clue. At the stable, Joseph tends to a young mongrel horse, unaware of the tension building around him. When Lulu spots the colt, she becomes visibly emotional, rushing toward it and embracing it with clear recognition. The onlookers are stunned. Marianne is horrified, unable to comprehend why a unicorn of royal standing would bond with a common mixed-breed horse. The scene's absurdity draws a quiet remark from our hero, likening it to a dramatic play where a noble parent rejects a forbidden match. Adrian, observing Lulu's behavior, affirms that despite every expectation, the connection between the two animals is genuine. Moran protests that the colt is too young, but Ojin points out that Lulu's choice is clear and that separating them would only harm both her and the unborn child. The evidence leaves Marini speechless, her thoughts circling the impossible reality before her, a unicorn symbol of purity and grace bound by affection to an ordinary stable horse. After discovering the truth about Lulu and the horse, Miran's father confronts Joseph. He tells the young man that allowing a lowly carriage horse to get close to a precious unicorn is utter madness. Joseph tries to explain that he had no idea, but the Count accuses him of lying and attempting to profit from the situation. Despite Joseph's denials, the Count refuses to listen and orders both him and the horse locked up, announcing that punishment will be delivered soon. The maids whisper among themselves, agreeing that the Count is being too cruel. Joseph did nothing wrong. They point out that no one can stop animals from being affectionate toward each other. The conversation turns to why Lulu was supposed to be sent to the royal palace, with some realizing she was likely meant as a bribe for the crown princess election at the end of the year. They mention Marianne's participation and how Lulu could have lived in royal luxury if things had gone as planned but instead ended up with a carriage horse. One maid comments that Lulu probably takes after her owner. Another hints that there's much people don't know about young Lady Marianne. Suddenly, one maid warns the others to be quiet. Just then, another maid rushes in to report that Lulu's condition has worsened. She started coughing blood. Marianne immediately hurries to Lulu's side and asks what's wrong. The maid explains that Lulu hasn't been able to eat due to morning sickness and is now vomiting blood. She remembers Selena's warning. Pregnant unicorns become extremely anxious when separated from their partners, and Lulu's health has worsened because of it. The maid cautions that if this continues, the situation could become much more dire. Marianne asks when Ajahn will arrive, and the maid replies that a message was sent in the morning, but he's delayed due to the distance. Determined, Marianne decides to find another doctor nearby and orders that the horse be brought to Lulu. The man leading the horse urges it to move faster while the maids complain about the smell. They say that being locked up is no excuse and that he should have been cleaned before meeting the young lady. The man insists it was urgent. Marianne silences them and instructs that the horse be sent in. The moment Lulu sees him, she immediately runs to him and presses herself close. Marianne orders warm water, saying she'll clean him herself. The maids are shocked, but she ignores their protests and also instructs them to prepare soup for Lulu. She begins cleaning the horse with a towel dipped in warm water, thinking that he's a heartless animal. Yet unable to forget how her own parents once disapproved of her relationship with a merchant's son. She reflects that Lulu could have lived surrounded by luxury but wonders if this simple happiness is what Lulu truly wants. At that moment, our protagonist arrives. He treats Lulu's condition and explains that although animals may have preferences, there is no hierarchy among them. Lulu does not see herself as superior to a horse. He sets up an four for Lulu and assures Marianne that just being with the one she loves is enough for her happiness. As he provides medicine, he notes that this will help for now but is only a temporary fix. The real solution is allowing Lulu and her partner to remain together. Marianne quietly agrees. Our hero prepares to leave, mentioning that he must return to the clinic where many patients await and his assistant doctor remains, though he silently doubts her empathy. Moran assures him she understands, saying she'll leave the aftercare to him. As Marianne and Ojin watch, Adrian clings awkwardly to the tree, visibly struggling to climb down. He finally descends, apologizing for his discourtesy, but our hero corrects him, calling it a crime instead. Adrian insists he only climbed the tree out of concern for Lulu and intended to leave after checking on her. Moran reminds him that he should have informed the staff, but Adrian explains he tried and was refused entry. Noticing the device in Adrian's pouch, Ajahn recognizes it as a stethoscope and casually comments on how cheap it feels. Adrian, embarrassed, admits it's still a prototype. Our protagonist advises that a doctor should have proper tools, then prepares to leave, mentioning his busy patient schedule. Adrian watches him go, thinking that Ajahn is a better person than he'd imagined, while our boy thinks the opposite, confirming to himself that Adrian is a strange man. Later that evening, Lulu begins eating on her own and regains some strength, bringing relief to Moran. Adrian tells her that love and care are the best medicine and praises her for personally tending to Lulu. Moran reflects that her stubbornness caused Lulu's suffering and admits she should have reunited them sooner, realizing she was perhaps jealous of her unicorn. She recalls how she was once as innocent as Lulu but over time grew used to judging others by their status and wealth. Adrian remarks that all nobles are like that. But Marianne thinks back to her first love, remembering how she never cared about status, only the beauty in his eyes. She had given up on him for their mutual happiness and now wonders aloud if she is truly happy. Adrian responds that first loves always end in heartbreak and that such pain can blind a person to the love already near them. He suggests her true soulmate might already be close. Marianne feels confused, realizing too late what she had overlooked, and decides to withdraw from the princess selection. As Adrian listens, he secretly takes a small box from his pocket. Feeling a rare opportunity forming in his heart, he places it before Marianne and starts to speak. But suddenly she declares that she will make her move on Ojin. Adrian freezes, uncertain if Shin heard correctly, and asks for clarification in disbelief. Marianne continues, saying she would rather hold power herself than marry someone who already has it, leaving Adrian stunned. She ends the conversation by thanking him and saying she hopes they can remain good friends. Adrian feels crushed by her words and vows never to forgive Ojin. Back at the clinic, Pio sneezes and continues reading from a paper, informing Ojin that Kyo is being taken in as Lulu's companion and requesting him to become Lulu's personal doctor. The offer includes 10 times the usual payment, but our hero refuses, explaining he cannot leave the hospital due to his busy schedule, and Pio complains that the tartar won't come off even after an hour. Ojin examines the snake, whose teeth are being cleaned, spots tartar buildup, and instructs Pio to spray saline and prepare anti-inflammatory medicine and cotton. While working, he discovers something lodged between the teeth and pulls out a small object. The pet's owner is overjoyed, revealing that the creature, Shamir, is a sacred beast once gifted to their family by the late king and that it has just swallowed their heirloom. Our protagonist notes that some tartar still remains, and several teeth may need extraction, estimating 1 or 2 more hours of work. Selena remarks that it might take 5 hours since the beast has another head. Overwhelmed, our hero despairs as the owner tries to cheer him up, presenting a painting of himself and Shamir. The owner explains it was created by their family's official portrait artist and asks if Ojin likes it. He finds the painting ugly and wants to refuse, but the artist insists he will finish and present it soon, saying it's been a long time since he found such an inspiring subject. While he speaks, Shamir's eyes open and Selena notices immediately. Ojin grows tense, wondering if the sedative dosage was enough. Selena raises her hand to cast a protective spell, but Adrian suddenly steps in front of her, and the spell hits him instead of the beast. Selena recognizes him as the noble doctor and wonders why he appeared so suddenly. Before anyone can react, Shamir opens its mouth, swallows Adrian whole, and gulps him down. Everyone in the room stands frozen, shocked that the beast has just swallowed a man. The clinic is closed for the day, yet a crowd has been waiting outside since dawn. People complain about traveling from afar after hearing of the doctor's skill, while others discuss trying the hospital in the next village instead. Watching from a distance, Adrian feels his anger rising. He cannot forgive Ojin for making women cry while calling himself the spirit of healing. He recalls a conversation with his assistant. When asked about the spirit of healing, the assistant described it as a legendary being capable of granting the power to rule the world. Adrian had scoffed at the idea, thinking Lady Marianne foolish for being swayed by such talk and believing that he himself looked more like a spirit than Ojin ever could. Yet his mind drifts back to the assistant's words about Ojin's miracles. Healing a flying fish, turning a demon apostle into a cat. The stethoscope hanging from Adrian's neck, a gift from our hero, feels heavier as he remembers being asked if he still cherishes it. He had pretended indifference, saying he would return it and asking if a copy existed. The assistant confirmed it. Now, hiding in a tree with binoculars, Adrian muses that he only came to return the tool, wondering why he's here again. Below, our protagonist is treating a hydra. Its 2 heads move weakly as he scrapes tartar from its gums, rinses with water, and applies medicine to prevent inflammation. Watching closely, Adrian feels reluctant admiration, realizing that our boy's medical skill far surpasses his own, even though he'd been a top student at the Royal Academy. Suddenly, the hydra's tail flicks. It begins to wake from sedation. Adrian notices too late as the creature lunges forward toward Helena. He runs to save her, and the hydra swallows him in one gulp. Shock ripples through the crowd. Ajin, momentarily stunned, watches as the hydra's owner cries out in panic. Selena quickly assesses that Adrian has been swallowed whole and prepares to use magic, but our protagonist stops her, noticing the hydra's tongue has turned purple and its breathing is blocked. It has swallowed something too large. Drawing on a method they once practiced, Ajin and Selena move at once. On his count, Selena strikes the hydra sharply, forcing it to perform a Heimlich maneuver. The creature thrashes, and with another strong hit, Adrian is expelled, landing on the ground. The hydra's breathing steadies and relief spreads among the owners, who praise our hero's medical skill. Our protagonist instructs Selena to check Adrian's condition. She confirms that he is alive but will remain unconscious for a while due to the magic spell used on the Gemini Hydra. Ajin silently notes that Shamir's condition has also stabilized, though the earlier shock caused bruising on its abdomen. Selena applies ointment and finishes the dressing. Later in the evening, our boy guides the hydra's owners to be more careful, reminding them that any accident where a pet swallows something is the owner's responsibility. They promise to be cautious, even joking that they'll make sure it never swallows a human again. A few days later, the Baron sends a painting titled The Great Rescue Operation as a gift. Our protagonist dismisses it as bizarre, only to learn that a statue of him saving Adrian from Shamir's mouth has also been made. He feels the world has gone mad. Meanwhile, Adrian remains asleep, unaware of it all, while Pio and Selena watch over him, waiting for him to wake. Adrian wakes up, confused about where he is and what happened. Memories begin to piece themselves together. He was spying on Ajin's clinic, saw the snake awaken, and jumped in to save Selena. The next thing he remembers is being swallowed whole. Inside the darkness, he thinks grimly that it's a fitting end for a vegetarian. If there's another life, maybe being reborn as a unicorn with a beautiful heroine wouldn't be so bad. Suddenly, pain courses through him. He wonders if this is what it feels like to be unborn, silently begging for it to stop. He cuffs and the sound pulls him back to reality. Selena stands beside him, noting that he's conscious now. Adrian, still dizzy, wonders if she's his owner. She tells him not to get up yet. The side effects of the magic will leave him dizzy and nauseous, so he should rest for 2 or 3 days. Adrian quietly agrees. Our protagonist enters with a steaming cup, instructing him to sit up for a moment. He explains that it's medicine for recovery and insists Adrian drink it all. Adrian obliges while Ojin mentions he even added some of Mundle's leaves to the brew. He also informs Adrian that Astrid Manor has already been contacted and that he can rest here for a few more days. Adrian protests, not wanting to impose, but our hero reminds him that as a doctor he should know health comes first. Adrian thanks him and our boy says he'll step out so Adrian can rest. As Ojin leaves, Adrian watches and finds himself thinking that our protagonist really is a great guy. Embarrassed about his earlier jealousy, Adrian decides he wants to be more like that someday until he spots a letter on the side table. An invoice. Loading fee 500 silver, meal fee 100 silver, total 66.86 silver. Adrian stares at it and curses Ajin under his breath. Meanwhile, at the clinic, a couple stands with their cat, worried that their pet's gender might be changed. Our hero explains it's just a figure of speech. The cat will be castrated. The couple protests, arguing that it's cruel. Our protagonist patiently reminds them that the cat's energy has been declining, caring for the kittens is hard, and the female's health is suffering from too many births. He asks what solution they would suggest. The owner protests that the cat is still young. Ajin asks if they want to calculate how many more kittens there will be in 5 years, or if they're secretly selling fennec fox pups. The owner denies it but argues that if the surgery happens, what pleasure will the cat have left? Used to these discussions, our hero explains that frequent mating causes rapid aging, shortens lifespan, and lowers the quality of life for both pet and owner. The couple leaves tired. Pio assures them she'll help book a surgery date. After they go, our protagonist mutters about having to schedule it himself soon. He's tired of repeating the same advice every time. Pio tells him the next patient is her childhood friend's pet and asks him to take good care of it. Ajin promises he will. A girl enters holding a large chicken and says they're here for a checkup. Our hero notes the bird's glossy feathers and remarks that it looks perfectly healthy. Pio adds that Pop is the biggest and healthiest among her friend's pets. The girl nods proudly. 20 minutes later, our hero finishes examining Pop and concludes the chicken is fit to compete in a prime chicken contest. The girl, still uneasy, mentions that Pop seems thinner lately, but Ajin determines it's not true weight loss. She recalls a seizure during Pop's sleep and worries it might be serious, but our protagonist concludes it was likely harmless restlessness. The girl adds that Pop's throat was sore the previous day, fearing infection. Pio reassures her that this is common. After a careful check, Ajin finds nothing abnormal, easing her concerns. Later, Pio runs in alarmed. Pop has disappeared. Tyr explains she stopped by the bathroom before heading home, and in that moment, Pop vanished. Ajin orders all exits and windows sealed. Selena tells everyone in the waiting area to stay put because an animal is missing. Some patients complain that their pets get restless if confined too long. Sunja calms them as their pets begin to act up. The team searches everywhere but can't find Pop. Ojin asks if Pop likes or dislikes anything ing particular. Tyr says she doesn't know, but maybe Pop already left. Our protagonist insists Pop can't open doors or jump through windows. It must still be inside. Pio remembers that Pop loves men. Our boy notes that some animals prefer low-pitched voices. Tyr says Pop's obsession with men is extreme. Realization dawns in on our hero. That's why Pop clung to him during the checkup. Sunja suggests there's only one place left, a room where a man is sleeping. They rush there and find Pop hugging Adrian tightly. Everyone freezes in surprise. Ajin looks at Tyr, asking why she did this. Ajin confronts Tyr, asking why she deliberately left Pop behind. From the start, he sensed something was off. In all his years as a doctor, he's met countless types of owners, but never a guardian disappointed to hear their pet is healthy. He points out that no matter how fast a chicken may be, it's too conspicuous and small to lose track of and far too noticeable to slip through doors and end up here unnoticed. He demands an explanation. Tyr confesses that she did it because the Baroness would never believe someone like her. But if a famous doctor like Ajin claimed Pop was sick and disappeared, she would. Our hero asks who would even believe such a story, and Tyr answers, bonus. Desperation fills her voice as she begs Ajin to save her. If she tells the Baroness that Pop is healthy, he'll be hunted. A hunting competition is approaching, hosted by the House of Baroness, alongside a banquet for an important guest rumored to include Prince Theo himself. The Baroness, preparing for the event, plans to cook Pop for the feast. The room falls silent. Pio bursts out in disbelief, questioning why anyone would want to eat someone's pet, especially when the Baroness already owns several large fire chickens. Tyr explains that those chickens died last year from a contagious disease. Ojin remarks, there must be other ingredients, yet the Baroness insists on Pop. Tyr goes on. Big fire chickens are prized for their vitality and fertility, creatures renowned for laying many eggs. Families seeking to strengthen their lineage often covet them, believing that consuming such a beast enhances vitality. Our protagonist bitterly observes that people everywhere are obsessed with stealing others' gifts through superstition. Tyr says the Baroness has long coveted Pop and now threatens to drive them from their farmland if they refuse. Pio, angered, declares that using someone's livelihood to steal a beloved pet is unforgivable. Tyr pleads again, begging Ojin to write a diagnosis claiming Pop has a contagious disease, assuring him that no one would dare touch the bird. Then our hero refuses, and the room grows heavy with silence. He explains that the moment a doctor forges a diagnosis, they stop being a healer. They become a fraud, exploiting life itself. Once that line is crossed, no treatment they offer can be trusted. Adrian suddenly interjects, furious, accusing him of valuing professional ethics above life itself. To him, a doctor's duty is to save lives, not cling to rules. Ajin remains resolute, reasoning that if he lies and claims Pop has a dangerous disease, the animal will be branded as infected. The barn could be sealed off, and every creature there might be slaughtered. If the truth comes out later, the family could face punishment or blame for future outbreaks. He states that a doctor's purpose is to save lives, but never at the cost of endangering hundreds to protect one. If someone cannot understand that, they are not fit to be a doctor. Tyr lowers her head, apologizing quietly. Outside the clinic, Tyr breaks down in tears. Pio tries to comfort her, assuring her that a solution must exist. Tyr despairs that she can never win against nobility and considers running away with Pop. Just then, our protagonist appears. He tells her there's no need to flee. Though he cannot help as a doctor, he can assist as a fellow pet owner. Tyr and Pio look up in relief as he explains his plan. Ajin instructs Tyr to spread a rumor in the house of the Baroness, and without turning, he calls out to the eavesdroppers nearby. He orders them to come out, especially Adrian, whom he assigns an important role. At the Clay's mansion, gossip fills the air. Guests discuss how Duke Astard's daughter, Lady Marianne, has withdrawn from the prince consort selection. Once considered a strong candidate, the Baroness listens with growing satisfaction, believing this is her daughter's chance to rise. She imagines the moment her daughter becomes the prince's chosen and sees it as revenge against every noble who once mocked them. The upcoming banquet, she thinks, will be the perfect stage to secure her daughter's future. Her plans are interrupted when Adrian appears at the entrance. The Baroness freezes, startled by his presence and captivated by his striking looks. As he approaches with composed grace, he requests to speak with her privately at the table. The Baroness, caught off guard, can only stare, wondering who this impossibly handsome stranger might be. The Baroness, seated beside Adrian, feels as though she is dreaming. Surrounded by admiring glances, she basks in the moment, barely able to believe she is conversing with such a handsome man at her own party. She asks if he graduated from the royal school, and upon his confirmation, eagerly inquires whether he has met the royal family. Adrian replies that he has, mentioning that he saw Prince Theo often since they attended during the same period. The Baroness immediately takes mental notes, deciding she must update her home's interior to match the latest royal trends. Curious, she asks about the prince's eating habits. Adrian responds with gentle curiosity, wondering if she intends to serve him a meal. Embarrassed, she hesitates, but he reassures her, saying he understands the challenge of preparing a dish for royalty. He offers to introduce her to his regular merchant, a secretive trader who only serves the upper class and deals exclusively in rare, high-quality imported ingredients. The Baroness, astonished and delighted, declares she wishes to meet this merchant right away, considering it an unexpected stroke of luck. Adrian escorts her to a small cottage, introducing it as the merchant's meeting place. The Baroness is disappointed by its humble appearance, but her thoughts are interrupted as two figures step forward and introduce themselves as Louis Vuitton and Chanel, none other than Selina and Ajin in disguise. Our protagonist welcomes her warmly, and Selina comments that she has arrived at just the right moment. The Baroness, wary, suspects they might be con artists. Ajin presents a dessert, describing it as the latest sensation among foreign nobles, a devilish confection called Tang Hulu. The Baroness examines the glossy skewered fruit and hesitantly takes a bite. Instantly, her doubts vanish. The crisp sugar shell shatters with a satisfying crack, releasing a burst of tangy juice that floods her senses. The sweetness and acidity combine perfectly. She is overwhelmed by the taste and silently admits to herself that these people are genuine first-class merchants. Once she's impressed, Ajin smoothly shifts the topic, mentioning a rumor that she recently acquired a rare ingredient known as the plant of immortality. The Baroness is startled, but our hero continues, describing it as the chickpea of eternal youth, an ingredient said to slow aging, improve health, and even prevent ailments like constipation and hair loss. Enthralled, the Baroness demands to purchase them all, but Ajin explains that every batch is already reserved. Adrian insists that as a regular customer, they should make an exception. Our boy hesitates, claiming the reserved stock is meant as a gift for the prince from another customer. The Baroness, alarmed, asks if that customer has a daughter of marriageable age. When our protagonist confirms, she realizes the rival's intent to win the prince's favor through this rare delicacy. In desperation, she offers to pay 10 times the price. Ajin, feigning nobility, refuses to sell her money alone, claiming that their trade is guided by the pursuit of truth, love, health, and peace. Selina suppresses a sigh at his performance. While the Baroness feels ashamed for exposing her greed before such admirable people, Adrian intervenes again, suggesting that surely compassion requires selling the goods to someone in greater need. The Baroness looks at him, touched, while our hero reluctantly agrees to make an exception and sell the chickpeas. Before she leaves, Ajin warns her of a crucial precaution. The chickpeas, he claims, contain the manna of the great big fire chicken, the divine ancestor of all fire chickens. Therefore, anyone consuming them must avoid all chicken-related foods for a time or else suffer reversed effects. Rapid aging, disease, constipation, and hair loss. Though none of this is true, the Baroness is horrified. The thought of being unable to eat chicken torments her, but the fear of losing her youth is even worse. She decides to keep the beans and abide by the restriction. Adrian jokes about older men obsessed with vitality, and our protagonist plays along, mocking the superstition. The Baroness nervously agrees, calling the obsession with fire chicken outdated. Later, back at the clinic, the plan succeeds. Pop is safe. Tear beams with relief and gratitude, thanking our hero for saving her companion. Ajin smiles, saying it was nothing, and hands her a custom carrier made from the money gained from Baroness Clay's. He explains that it will help prevent future mishaps. Tear, moved, calls him her lifelong benefactor. Our protagonist laughs modestly, saying she can call on him anytime for help. Meanwhile, the Mundara sulks in jealousy as Pop enjoys the attention. Ajin offers Tear a part-time job caring for animals, and she eagerly accepts. Just as the mood lightens, Pop suddenly tries to swallow the mandrake whole, sending everyone into a panic. After restraining him and securing him in the cage, our protagonist reminds Tear not to bring Pop along when she starts work. Turning to Adrian, our hero hands him payment for his cooperation. Adrian is surprised by the amount, but Ajin quickly clarifies that medical, lodging, and other fees have been deducted, leaving only 312 silver. Adrian, outraged, grabs our boy by the collar, calling him a con artist for charging so much. Selina interrupts, reminding Adrian that the treatment was effective. Adrian immediately shifts tone, complimenting her skill and thanking her for the recovery he felt after taking her prescribed medicine. Selina promises him an additional prescription to maintain his condition, and he accepts with a smile. After Adrian leaves, Selina questions whether it was wise to let him go. Our protagonist admits that Adrian's medical abilities are decent and that he works well with her. Still, he brushes off the idea of recruiting him for now. Selina remarks that his greed for money has reached its peak and predicts that Ajin will soon regret this decision. Prince Theo sips his tea, listening as talk of the upcoming hunting competition drifts through the room. Baron Doyle kneels an apology, explaining that he has searched for an opportunity to secure the Monascaros, but the hospital is never empty. Theo scorns such half measures and demands a bolder plan to present Sunja the Monascaros proudly before everyone and seize power with its aid. He warns the Baron that failure will leave him in a perilous position. A sudden commotion interrupts. The Baron's pet, Magma, grows restless at feeding time and lunges for a dish of chickpeas brought in by a servant. The wolf devours them, prompting Theo to erupt in anger while the Baron bows and vows restitution, promising tenfold amends as he scrambles to appease the prince. Meanwhile, at Ojin's clinic, a recent surgical patient is recovering. The staff warn owners that accidents can happen as animals wake from anesthesia and caution them to watch closely. Tear returns with concerns about Pop's younger sibling, Cheap, who is lethargic and coughing. Ajin examines Chap, notes a mild cold with muscle weakness, prescribes daily medication, and urges careful care. When Tear returns the next day, she reports no improvement and that her dog has now fallen ill, too. Our protagonist recognizes the same symptoms across different species and decides to hospitalize both animals to prevent further spread. Within days, the pattern repeats. Animals from different households arrive with identical signs. Our hero realizes this is more than a simple cold and urgently instructs pet owners to cover their noses and mouths, avoid touching things with hands that have handled sick animals, and wear gloves. He separates symptomatic animals to the second floor and keeps others on the first. Despite the symptoms being mild, medication brings no progress, and the disease is entirely indifferent to species. Selena warns that at this rate, the outbreak will soon become widespread. Her prediction proves true. The clinic overflows with desperate owners pleading for care. Forced to turn some patients away, our protagonist watches as every nearby hospital reaches capacity. Lord Baron arrives in a panic about his indoor pet, Elizabeth, who he insists should not have contracted anything. A newly acquired turtle is revealed as the likely carrier. Baron inquires about nearby empty properties, and a vacant building in the back alley is offered as a temporary annex. Realizing the scale of the crisis, our hero accepts the loan and suddenly finds himself running a second facility alone, treating patients across 2 sites and wondering how he can possibly manage without another doctor. Over at Adrian's hospital, he notices an empty ward and asks why patients are scarce. His assistant explains that the town is facing an infectious outbreak and predicts a call for support. Soon after, a letter arrives from Ajin requesting aid. Bring spare medicines and equipment with a curt offer of 2 gold per hour and a potential performance bonus. Adrian initially bristles at the tone, intent on burning the presumptuous letter, but then he sees a line mentioning Selena collapsing from overwork. Conscience overrides pride. Adrian announces he will leave until the war against the pandemic is over. Reasoning that where disaster strikes, a doctor must go. His assistant falls silent, recognizing the gravity of the decision. The first epidemic sweeps across the land, prompting Pio to gather everyone inside the clinic and announce strict isolation measures. Any animal showing symptoms must be quarantined, and unnecessary outings are to be avoided. Questions arise about when each patient's cough began, and records quickly pile up. Adrian continues examining patients after 12 hours of non-stop work, noting swollen throats but in some cases ruling out the epidemic. Selena is buried in 26 hours of drug testing, while our protagonist tends to a weak rabbit after 18 hours of continuous treatment, gently finishing the checkup as exhaustion weighs on the entire staff. Schwinn arrives with Max, reporting that 2 more cases have appeared among the hunting dogs scheduled for the upcoming competition. The impatient ward overflows, and Tyr informs our boy there's no more room. Still, Ajin insists on finding space and continues searching for a cure, assuring everyone that they will do their best. Schwein thanks him while Adrian questions why they keep admitting patients beyond capacity. Our hero answers through his actions, unwilling to turn anyone away. Pio reports that some guardians are demanding to discharge their pets, thinking mild coughing is harmless. Ajin rejects the idea, explaining that neglect could lead to irreversible damage, especially for working animals like hunting dogs, which would be abandoned if they lost their value. He firmly believes all animals deserve equal care, regardless of their usefulness. Late into the night, our protagonist experiments with antibiotics infused with dragon's power, but all attempts fail. Meanwhile, Selena warns him to stop before overusing the dragon's energy strains his heart. He blames mana instability and even considers learning alternative medicine. Selena points out that he hasn't slept in 3 days before knocking him unconscious for a forced rest. 5 hours later, Ajin wakes in a daze, being fed by Tyr with fresh food. He realizes the egg is from Pop, a healthy chicken who hasn't caught the epidemic. Tyr mentions that both Pop and Sunja are fine despite exposure. Suddenly, our hero connects the dots, running through every possible shared trait, diet, blood type, and temperament, until his eyes fix on Sunja, who is being spat on by the Mundara, just as the Mundara spat on Pop. That's why Sunja and Pop didn't develop the infection. Using a sample of Mundara saliva mixed with that of an infected animal, Ajin observes the gray experimental leaves turn green, confirming a cure. The clinic erupts in relief as our protagonist and the team praise the Mundara for saving countless lives. Now comes the issue of mass production. The team debates methods, pressing, and diluting, but Selena prepares a sweet nutrient drink mixed with diuretics. The Mundere gulps it eagerly, saliva dripping from its leaves in abundance. Ajin marvels at how quickly they can now collect the essence and begin synthesizing the medicine. By morning, the epidemic subsides. Max's cough fades, and his strength returns. Our boy feels deep relief while administering the final vaccine doses. As he finishes the last prescription, heavy knocks thunder against the clinic door. Voices from outside announce that Lord Baron has arrived and demand our hero's arrest. Baron arrives at the clinic with his men, drawing a confused crowd that murmurs questions about the scene. Ajin opens the door calmly, meeting the Baron's gaze as the noble declares his arrest for spreading an animal epidemic and exploiting treatment fees. Our hero's expression tightens, recalling the lie he once spun to protect Sunja. He points to Sunja's fading M-shaped mark as proof of his success. Recognizing that the accusation is just a pretext, the Baron's true goal is to seize Sunja. Pio steps forward, defending Ojin's integrity, but the Baron dismisses his words angrily. Our protagonist ends the argument, agreeing to go quietly but insisting on sedating Sunja first. The Baron hesitates, then relents. Ajin quietly signals Selena to prepare for an escape using magic. Selena misunderstands, readying herself to strike instead. Once Sunja is sedated and placed in the cage, a faint light flickers from our protagonist's ring finger, the signal. Selena acts, not with magic, but with a sudden punch that sends one of the Baron's men collapsing. She grabs Sanja and flees into the crowd. The Baron orders his men to pursue, prioritizing the cat over Ojin. Our hero recognizes their intent, confirming his suspicions. The Baron seizes Ajin by the collar, threatening destruction, but Pio steps in, refusing to let the clinic be damaged. Adrian moves forward to shield Pio, forcing the Baron to withdraw under the watchful eyes of the onlookers. The men take Ajin away. Our boy entrusts the clinic to Pio and Adrian, hoping that Selena can keep Sunja safe. Rumors soon ripple through the city that Ajin, once the hero who fought the Monoxus, is responsible for the epidemic. The Baron announces a public trial, drawing attention from every corner. In prison, our protagonist rests briefly after days of exhaustion until the Baron and his wolves arrive. The Baron demands the location of the cat and the elf. Ajin remains silent, inwardly relieved, knowing that Selena and Sunja have escaped. The Baron threatens violence, gesturing toward his growling wolves. Our hero observes Magma trembling, his posture uneven and signs of pain clear. He examines the wolf briefly, noting blood in the urine and lethargy. Diagnosis reveals a severe hernia neglected for far too long. Ajin concludes that immediate surgery is necessary to save the animal's life. Outside the mansion, Selena hides with Sunja, who grows increasingly restless. Selena steadies her grip, whispering reassurance with quiet determination that our hero is still unharmed. Ajin diagnoses Magma with a hernia and immediately orders the wolf to be moved to a clean room for emergency surgery. He directs the preparation of tools, medicine, and anesthesia, maintaining a calm authority as the procedure begins. Once anesthesia has taken effect and the area is disinfected, our hero starts the operation with steady precision. The Baron stands nearby, watching anxiously while a servant hands over a protective apron and gloves to minimize infection risk. Throughout the surgery, our protagonist keeps tight control, requesting temperature checks, timing the next dose of anesthesia, and insisting on proper sterilization of each instrument. The Baron grows tense, unsure whether to trust Ajin's judgment. And outside the room, he finds himself questioning the diagnosis until a memory surfaces of Magma's mother, who died with similar symptoms. Staring at her portrait, realization dawns that she too suffered from the same condition. Meanwhile, in the Baron's office, petitions demanding Ajin's release begin to pile up. Among them is a letter from Lady Marianne Astard's family threatening to report the Baron's false accusations to the king unless our protagonist is freed. Servants voice their outrage, alarmed by the mounting backlash. The surgery concludes successfully. The Baron rushes to see his companion breathing steadily as Ian calmly explains the regimen. A week of medication and a future appointment for suture removal. Finally, exhaustion overtakes our hero, and he collapses onto a nearby sofa, succumbing to sleep after days of relentless work. The Baron notices the raw marks left by handcuffs on Ojin's wrists and quietly instructs that they not be used again. Back in prison, our protagonist drifts into a dream. He finds himself surrounded by the warmth of home. His parents' voices echo faintly. His mother frets that his clinic must be struggling again, while his father laments his stubbornness, recalling how he rejected medical school to become a veterinarian. He questions what's so noble about tending to animals. Yet, our hero in the dream feels only peace. An animal appears, pressing against him. Something between a cat and a lion, warm and comforting. Elsewhere, Theo confronts the Baron about the missing Monocaros. The Baron reports that it was taken by the Ethetheran Order, revealing that Selena was an agent of theirs. Reports confirm her involvement with suspicious groups of elves. Theo's anger erupts, condemning the Baron's incompetence. The Baron apologizes and hesitantly asks whether Ojin should now be released, mentioning the mounting complaints from both nobles and commoners. Theo, weary of the matter, allows him to decide. At the mansion, our hero is freed. Before leaving, he instructs the servants to return with magma in 3 days for stitch removal and hands over a list of precautions. A servant mentions another patient, a hunting dog with bad knees, and our protagonist agrees to examine it soon. Stepping outside, Ojin finds his friends waiting at the gate. Shock and relief wash over him as they reveal they were prepared to storm the castle if his release had been delayed any longer. He thanks them, and moments later, Sunja, Mundere, and Pop rush forward, enveloping him in a joyous embrace. Selena stands nearby, safe and smiling, holding Sunja close. Our hero recalls his dream and the figure so much like her, reaffirming his conviction that becoming a veterinarian was the right choice. From a window inside the mansion, the Baron watches silently. His servant nervously asks if they are truly letting Ojin go. The Baron's gaze lingers on the scene as the servant insists something strange happened in the cell. Monocurus was seen licking the doctor's face before vanishing. The Baron brushes off the claim, though inwardly his thoughts betray a deep uncertainty, declaring Ojin the winner of their conflict. Days later, a sealed envelope arrives at the Baron's desk, a detailed surgical bill from our hero. Reading it, the Baron grips the paper with white knuckles, swearing never to forgive him. In the morning, Adrian arrives at the clinic, greeting Selena as he presents the herbs she requested earlier. Ojin, watching from afar, wonders why Adrian has returned yet again. Selena examines the bundle, surprised that such rare herbs were found out of season. Adrian, confident, declares that nothing is beyond his reach. She hands him another list, which he accepts eagerly. As Selena inspects the supplies, Adrian comments on their excellent quality, especially praising a sprig of spinach, only to realize it has vanished from his hand. The culprit is Bloop, the small blob creature now chewing on the herb. Adrian scolds it and reaches out to retrieve the plant, but Bloop bites his finger, splits into 3, and smacks him across the face. Glaring, Adrian mutters that creatures truly resemble their owners and every animal raised by our hero has a bad temper. Selena corrects him, declaring Bloop as her child, which prompts Adrian to remark that no wonder it has such fine taste in herbs. Bloop smirks mischievously, and Adrian freezes, realizing the creature just smiled at him. Selena places Bloop into a cage to contain his antics. Inside the clinic, Bloop, also known as Ping Ping, is no ordinary blob. He narrates his dominion with pride, claiming the herb room on the 2nd floor as his territory. Among the hundreds of animals passing through each day, only 2 beings truly hold authority. He and Kim Sunja, Ojin's right hand and the hospital's enforcer. Though Sunja possesses unmatched physical strength, she dares not provoke him. Within Ping Ping's forehead lies a vision core capable of multiplying his body infinitely, spreading calamity upon those who anger him. When they first met, Sunja sensed his danger and attacked. But Ping Ping revealed his power, silencing all resistance. Since then, he has lived comfortably under Selena's protection, sharing rule over the clinic with Sunja. Later that day, an owner rushes into the clinic with a lifeless pet struck by a carriage, pleading for help. Ojin examines the small body, finds the airway clear, and orders timed compressions. He performs the CPR methodically, ignoring the owner's disbelief. Moments later, the animal coughs and breathes again. Shock turns to awe as the owners proclaim it a miracle. While Ping Ping observes from his cage, marveling at our hero's ability to bring life back from death. Ojin requests a single leaf from Mundle. Ping Ping, disdainful, recalls Mundle's lowly status as Sunja's minion and mocks its pitiful dancing. Mundle glares back, prompting Ping Ping to taunt him further. Amused by the lack of response, night descends, and Ping Ping resumes his self-imposed training, running on his wheel until he divides into 3 copies, creating chaos throughout the clinic. He admires his stronghold, a cozy setup gifted by our protagonist. As a sign of loyalty, perfectly positioned for temperature and humidity, his satisfaction turns to fury when he discovers his stronghold damaged beyond recognition. He immediately suspects Mundle, who smirks from a distance. Rage flares as Ping Ping accuses him of defiance. Mundle, empowered by recent medicinal herb enhancements, stands his ground. Ping Ping mocks him for daring to challenge his superior, then launches an attack. Mundle dodges, and Ping Ping crashes backward. Assessing his opponent, Ping Ping notes the improvement in Mundle's body and resilience but reminds him that without his pot, he is nothing, a plant doomed to wither. With a swift blow, Ping Ping shatters Mundle's pot, sending him to the floor in despair. Declaring dominance, Ping Ping demands that he kneel. Mandal glares up, desperate and furious, preparing a secret weapon, a sonic shriek capable of rupturing eardrums. Ping Ping senses danger, tries to cover his ears, and realizes his stubby arms cannot reach them. The attack fails, producing only a weak trembling sound. Ping Ping mocks Mandal's silence, satisfied at his opponent's downfall. Moments later, our hero enters, drawn by the commotion. He surveys the mess and the fallen Mundle with his broken pot, immediately understanding what happened. Kneeling beside the crying plant, he soothes it gently, assuring it will be fine. Lifting the fragments of the pot, Ojin smiles faintly and decides it's time to repot Mundle once again. After receiving an excess of supergrowth serum, Mundle grows to 1.5 times his original height. Our hero prepares a larger pot for him, layering it with top-grade soil and finishing with premium organic nutrients. Yet, as Mundle settles into his new home, he quickly appears unwell. Ojin examines him closely, puzzled by the lack of response. Selena, watching silently, suddenly plucks one of Mandal's leaves. The action startles our protagonist, who turns in shock. A quiet cry erupts from Mundle, echoing through the clinic. He flinches, covering his ears, while Selena freezes, equally startled. After a tense silence, Mundle gives a weak response. Our boy concludes that frequent removal from his pot dulled Mundle's voice and reassures him it will return naturally over time. The following day, Mundle looks even worse, leaves drooping, surface pale, and signs of accelerated aging